This is AnAqSim's Plot tab that shows an XY plane plot in this large window here, and what's in that plot is set up underneath this menu, the Plot Input menu. There's an extra menu here. In addition to the main menu across the top, there's this menu at the upper left just below the main menu. That's the Plot tab menu, and under the first item, Plot File, that's where you can save an image of the plot you've made. You can print it. You can save the data that the contours are based on into a binary file and use that later, say to subtract the results of one run from another to create a drawdown plot, for example. And you can export the data that the contours are based on to a file that could be picked up by other visualization software packages. This thing, the View Manager, let me open that, lets you control the color of each layer and the line weight and whether it's displayed or not, so on. Digitizing, you have a lot of options there, and snap settings pertain to digitizing. There's an entire separate video about digitizing and snap settings, so I'll leave that for now. You can edit line boundaries. There's also a separate video all about that. Annotate is if you want to add shapes or text to your drawing, just to label something, for example. You can do that under here. You can crop the plot. You can undo and redo things like zooms and cropping and so on. You can set the text style for your annotations here. And plot info tells you what time step you're at, what the head contour increment is, and things like that. And zooming is fairly straightforward. You zoom all, show everything in the model. You can zoom a window and just zoom in on a subset of the model. You can zoom out, you can zoom to the previous view. All that's fairly intuitive. And just below this menu, you have a bunch of information that is information about the solution at the location of the cursor. So if I move the cursor around the plot, you'll see the coordinates change, the head changes, the name of the domain you're in may change, and the head minus the head below, that's the head difference between this level that we've contoured and the one below it, saturated thickness, and so on. There's quite a lot there. Won't go through all of that, but that's explained well in the user guide. If you right click over the plot anywhere, you get a pop-up menu that contains a bunch of useful shortcut things. For example, if you wanted to edit the properties of the domain at the location of the cursor, you'd click here, and that particular domain is shaded and highlighted blue at the left. And you can do the same thing for wells and line boundaries and area sinks. So it's a handy thing. Another thing you can do there is digitize or edit line boundaries, a lot like you could with this menu up here. You can set the plot window to the current view. So let's say you wanted to make a zoom in plot right around the well. You could zoom the window, be close up on the well there, right click, say set the plot to the current view, and make a new plot that will be zoomed in like that. Another thing you can do is set the plot window to the entire model, and then subsequent plots will be of the entire model domain like that. And you can check the nearest line boundary condition. Let's zoom in here. And by the way, you can zoom using the scroll wheel on a mouse, and you can pan by pressing down on the scroll wheel and dragging the view around like that. You can also use these scroll bars to pan. So if we wanted to check the line boundary, say for this river reach here, that particular segment that's close to the cursor, I would right click, check nearest line boundary condition, and this shows the modeled discharge per length, as well as one computed based on head and stage. And the last thing you can do that's kind of neat is in a transient model, you can make a hydrograph of the location where the cursor is in all levels of the model. So this is a 2-layer model in that area, and we've got a 2 time period simulation where a well shuts off and heads rise, and then it turns back on and they fall.